Hi everyone, I'm Prerna Singh Bindra, wildlife conservationist and writer, and I'm here today to talk to you about a few of my favorite nature reads. The first among which is, rather than just a book, it's M. Krishnan, naturalist, wildlife conservationist, writer, photographer, who greatly influenced me, reading greatly influenced me in my choice of a vocation. And I remember reading M. Krishnan's writing. He used to write a column in The Statesman, and I used to eagerly await. It was called The Country Notebook, and some of which are reflected here in this book. He was a wordsmith. Observation was remarkable. His photographs of the time are just extraordinary, and he has another book called Nature Spokesperson, which is a collection of his books edited by Ramchandra Guha, and I would highly recommend it. The second book that I would like to speak to you about is by F.W. Champion. His other book, that was With a Camera in Tigerland, is better known. He was a Imperial Forest Service officer, a contemporary of Jim Corbett. In fact, he influenced Jim Corbett to give up hunting and take up the camera. And before I move on to this book, I must tell you that F.W. Champion is the pioneer of the camera trap method that we use today to estimate tigers and other wildlife across the globe. This officer developed it in a remote forest in the Terai, in what is the Corbett landscape. And what strikes me is that at a time when hunting was the norm, when any naturalist, they were all shikaris who used to look through wildlife through the barrel of a gun. But his writing is so empathetic. And he speaks not just of bigger game, but also writes on wildlife, rattles, jackals, langurs, leopards, which few gave any reference to. And he speaks about curiosity in animals, a very remarkable read, incidentally. And just one line in which he writes about captivity, keeping animals in zoos and cages, that speaks of his sensitivity and his powerful writing. I do not believe that a big cage and enclosure can in any way compare in a tiger's mind with the vast spaces of his native jungle, much less the tiny cramped coffin of the traveling circus. I do not believe that the eagle, monarch of the air, could be happy in any cage, where he cannot even spread his wonderful wings, where he cannot experience the glorious thrill of sailing over the mountains of his home. That's F.W. Champion for you. The third one, Douglas Adams, more popular for his iconic books, the Hitchhiker series, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. But I think the best of them all, his most extraordinary work is Last Chance to See, written with the biologist Mark Cardwayne. Actually, he was the one who he traveled with to 6 countries to look at creatures who were literally on the brink, so the last chance to see. And he writes of the Komodo dragons in Indonesia, where he goes to New Zealand to find a rare, and he says, the world's largest, fattest parrot. He goes to Mauritius to find the endangered kestrel. He goes to China, this is my favorite chapter, to find, but he could not, the blinded Yangtze river dolphin. Like most river dolphins, they are blind, they cannot see, and this chapter reflects that. It's called The Blind Panic. What's most impressive about this book is it's such a very grim topic. In anyone's hands, it would just reduce you to tears. You're writing about animals who are just going to die off, extinction, the end. But he writes of it not just with empathy, it does move you to tears, but suddenly amidst all that grimness, all that glum and that gloom and doom, there's remarkable wit. He writes it with a great sense of humor, and I found myself I was reading this on a train for the first time, and I found myself crying, tears would be going down my face, and suddenly I would be roaring with laughter, much to the amusement and bewilderment of my companions. Blind Panic is, as I said, on the River Dolphin, the Baiji as it was called, and it's now extinct, largely due to not just the pollution in the freshwater river system, the huge amount of traffic, or the ship traffic that is there in the habitat of the dolphin, and dolphins sense and navigate their world through their hearing. But imagine, the dolphin's world, which is full of streamers and ships and their constant buzzing, noises, etc. So he says, as I watched the wind ruffling over the bilious surface of the Yangtze, I realized with the vividness of shock that somewhere beneath or around me were intelligent animals whose perceptive universe we could scarcely begin to imagine, living in a seething, poison, deafening world, and that their lives were probably passed in continual bewilderment, hunger, pain, and fear. Must-read book. I must have gifted this book to I don't know how many people. Well, the next one is called The Great Soul of Siberia, In Search of the Elusive Siberian Tiger, written by a Korean biologist, Sooyong Park. Most of us, especially living in India, are used to seeing, tigers on show in Setaroba, Ranthambore. You go on a safari, you come back, enjoy having drinks by the fireside later in the evening. This man, he filmed tigers, and for 6 months in an year, he stayed in, in a hide which was sort of underground, minus 30 degrees. He stayed there continually. He ate boiled rice balls because he did not want their scent to reveal his presence to the tiger or other wildlife. He urinated and excreted in bottles, again, so that his presence would not be sensed by the wildlife. So he would see them in the natural state. He could observe them as they were, not influenced by the presence of a human. This book is a study in patience, it moved me incredibly. And he says, if you want to access the intimate depths of nature, you must become a tree on a slope. If you wait patiently and are as still and quiet as a tree, nature will show its soft underbelly. How do trees and the forest change clothes with the seasons? How does the wind turn from friend to foe? And when does the fog come for a visit? And how long does it stay? Only when you become a part of nature does nature reveal the answers to these personal questions. Read this book, and this is how it's my ideal, how one must observe nature. My last book is by another biologist, George Schaller, who has had a huge influence in my life. He's a pioneering conservation biologist. He did the first ever study on tigers. Most Indians revere and still swear by his classic, The Deer and the Tiger. And subsequently, he's done pioneering studies in the mountain gorilla, on the panda, on lions in Africa, I could go on, but this one, he's worked in Mongolia, he's worked on jaguars, he's studied rainforests, snow leopards, of course. He was the GS in the classic Snow Leopard by Peter Matheson. The giant panda, the golden monkey, the tiger, of course. So this one is a snapshot of all his studies. What is, again, why George Schaller's books appeal? They appeal to the heart. He says George Schaller believes that conservation must appeal to the heart of the people. And his books are not just based on knowledge. but he writes so evocatively, so powerfully, they move you. So he's a rare scientist who writes with heart, and that is I think stems from his belief that instead of being just a biologist, something for which I was trained, I must also be an educator, a diplomat, a fundraiser, a politician, an anthropologist. No wonder then that I seek solitude. Physical obstacles are minor compared to political ones. He aspires for an ideal beyond science. His goal is to help fragments of wilderness endure. So his writing is, while based on knowledge, based on science, it appeals to the heart. It's written with emotion because he's an educator. He's a politician who must navigate to conserve these fragments of wilderness. And it's an amazing read, all his books, and he actually writes each of his works, each of his studies, be it the mountain lion, be it the giant panda, be it the gorilla. One is a scientific writing, one is a scientific treatise, while the other is popular science, which would appeal to the lay reader. Of course, the last of the books that you must read is The Vanishing, authored by me. Sorry, people, I didn't remember to actually get that book to show it to you, but it's so popular. I'm sure you'll get your hands on it. It's been a pleasure to speak about all my favorite books, and it's motivated me to read them yet all over again. But before I finish this, I would also say that I'm very excited by the new, increasingly popular genre of eco-fiction. For example, Barbara Kingsolver, whose book Prodigal Summer, Flight Behavior, and also even some books by Anuradha and Anuradha Roy. They have nature woven into the script, and even comic strips like Calvin and Hobbes. I mean, suddenly you'll have this incredible writing, which 5,000 words couldn't convey, but one comic strip will do it. So read all of this, go explore, don't read, explore, engage. That's my my parting shot really. Thank you so much for listening to me.